Like there's so many opportunities to just build a massive amount of housing. If you can just infuse a ton of capital into it with the right measures where there's a return that's just enough for like, enough meat on the bones, we're creating jobs. The MERBS program was basically, the biggest some people might say case of fraud because there's a lot of businesses who got away with a lot of some dirty tricks there. But it was the biggest incentivization of building housing that Canada's ever seen. And maybe there was some flaws with that program, and maybe there was things that could have been done better. But like that's what it takes. Is it doesn't take like unfortunately you and Darryl and even the biggest named developers just don't have the capacity to build the housing that we need them to do. We need money to come in from other industries, the pension funds, the institutional guys, the guys who just have got, like you said, a longer time horizon. So their expectations on that, return are a lot longer and can be annually lower. We need that money to be injected in so that we can actually build these massive amount of sites. And like there's so many projects. Like look what they did at Jane and Highway 7, just like overnight, what it feels like. We've got all these new subway extensions and all these MTSAs that are coming up. Like there's so many opportunities to just build a massive amount of housing. If you can just infuse a ton of capital into it with the right measures where there's a return that's just enough for like enough meat on the bones, we're creating jobs, we're
Yeah,
creating
TK,
communities.
obviously, with all this inventory piling up, we don't really have a housing shortage. It's just a bunch of developer builder bullshit, isn't it?
But the inventory out there that's now is just not attractive, right?
But
That's
this
what
is
it
what
is.
everybody says. This is what you got to hear out there, right? So, but how do you balance? How do you argue that when obviously, it seemingly doesn't seem like there's an issue with, inventory, right?
Well, I'm not sure that that's actually the case. I think it's an issue of affordability. So yeah, sure, there's inventory on the market, but when people are losing their jobs and interest rates are higher than they've been in a long time, people just can't afford or don't feel comfortable in buying those homes.
Yeah.
So it's not that there's no and there's a limit to how low someone can drop their price. If you bought a unit for $700,000 and the highest bid you can get on it today is $500,000 or whatever, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to carry the unit or are you going to take the loss? Are you going to go bankrupt over it?
Your
Like,
mortgage might even be more than the offer.
Well,
yeah,
so
and
but
we're,
what
we're
happens in the
seeing that
case?
right now.
Well, what happens if they do give the tax relief, the government, and the prices drop to a point where developments around like some of these are have already been sold? What happens to values kind of around where this starts to kick in? Did that make sense? Did my question mean anything?
Yeah, I think what you're saying is like for projects where they have maybe paid more for the units in a hot
Or
market
next door, like a
or
building.
next door. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're already seeing a bit of the impact of that right now. So there are buildings that are closing that sold at the peak of the market in 2021, 2022, were built really, really quickly. And the appraisals coming in at closing are $300 a square foot cheaper than what they paid for it. And
Oh,
so it's forcing people to either assign the units, take a loss. There's lots of people taking a loss on their full deposits, so they're losing 20% of the value of the unit. Some people are even taking a further loss than that because they don't want to risk, the threat of a lawsuit with the builder. And so we're already seeing that happen right now. And I'd say, the market will eventually correct itself over time, as you build more supply and as time passes, the longer you go from the day you purchased it to eventually when you have to sell it, if you can kind of ride through that, you'll eventually break even or start making your money if you bought at the peak of the market. But the truth is some people will have bought at the peak of the market and they will lose some money. If they have to sell, they're going to lose money. And that's no different than if you buy, you know, Nvidia at the peak of the market and it drops, or you buy anything else at the peak of a market and it drops. There is still a free market here and it still needs to work, but the free market needs to still, like in the case of housing, which is so heavily regulated, the regulations need to be set up in a way that at least enable the opportunity for some level of affordability. Like that's what the government's job should be, is how do we make sure that housing can be delivered at a price point that matches the salaries and the expectations of Canadians. And that's where things are broken. And it worked for a long time. Like I think what government saw over the last 15 years is progressively decreasing interest rates. And as a result of that, people were able to afford more, values of properties were bid up, and as they got more expensive, governments kept taking a larger piece of the pie. And so it worked until it didn't work. And once interest rates started going up and the system broke, now the government, I think, has to look within and decide, maybe it worked 5 years ago, but there's a new normal today, and we need to readjust expectations in order to ensure we're allowing housing to be delivered. And, the whole point of our pledge was that, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to do what our job is, which is to try to deliver housing at a price point that makes some sense, but also ensure that it's financeable and that we can build it and get construction loans and everything else. And it's your job now, the ball's in your court to make some difficult choices and to do the right thing.
Hey guys, thanks for watching our clips channel. Why don't you go and check out some more clips? We got lots of other good content somewhere over here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Boom.
That was good.
That was good. I like that. That was good.